First contact. In the cold depths of space, a sleek human vessel cruised through a glittering field of stars. At the helm sat Lieutenant Meera Patel, her quick eyes scanning the displays with a shrewd intensity. There was a restlessness about Meera, an eagerness for action that had defined her unorthodox but accomplished career in the Space Force. Lieutenant Patel, report. The clipped voice of Captain Luka Novak crackled over the comm. A stern commanding officer, Novak had long been wary of Myra's unconventional approach, even as he recognized her talent. Meera straightened in her seat. All quiet, Captain. No anomalies detected on long-range scanners. Continuing patrol route Zeta 5. Steady as she goes, Lieutenant, Novak replied. Stick to your mission parameters. I don't want any surprises out there. Myra's mouth quirked in a wry smile. Surprises were what she lived for out here on the fringes of known space. The thrill of discovery, the rush of the unknown. It's what had drawn her to the stars in the first place. Suddenly, an urgent tone filled the cockpit. Myra's eyes widened as she saw a flashing indicator on the scanner. Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal. Unknown origin, non-human frequency. There was a tense pause before Novak responded. Proceed with caution, Lieutenant. This far out, it could be a trap. Reinforcements are on standby if needed. Myra's heart raced with exhilaration even as her training kicked in. An unknown signal meant a first contact situation, the moment every Space Force officer dreamed of. And yet, the risk was undeniable. The signal could be a lure, a ploy by hostile forces to draw them in. As they approached the coordinates, a glint caught Myra's eye. Magnifying the viewport, she saw it, a sleek, crystalline ship unlike anything she'd seen before. It hung motionless, its hull pitted and scorched from some kind of attack. Visual contact confirmed, Captain, Meera reported, her voice tense with excitement. The alien vessel appears damaged but intact. No signs of active weapons. Requesting permission to initiate first contact protocol. The comm crackled with interference as Novak weighed the situation. Granted, Lieutenant. But exercise extreme caution. We have no idea what we're dealing with here. One wrong move could spell disaster. Meera nodded, even though Novak couldn't see her. She understood the weight of this moment, the responsibility that now rested on her shoulders. Taking a deep breath, she opened a comm channel to the alien ship. Unknown vessel, this is Lieutenant Meera Patel of the Earth Space Force. We have received your distress signal and are here to offer assistance. Please respond. Silence stretched out for several agonizing moments. Then, a melodic voice filled the cockpit, its tone strangely soothing despite the unknown language. Myra's translation software kicked into gear, parsing the alien words into something she could understand. Greetings, people of Earth, the voice said. I am Lumarel of the Lumina. Our ship was attacked and we are in dire need of aid. We are grateful for your presence here. Meera felt a thrill race through her. This was it, humanity's first contact with an alien race. So much rode on this moment, on the decisions she would make in the coming hours. The fate of two races, the future course of human history, pivoted on this delicate exchange. Under Novak's watchful command, Meera carefully maneuvered her ship to dock with the alien vessel. Donning a protective exosuit, she prepared to board, her hand resting lightly on her holstered pulse pistol. A gesture of caution, even as she hoped for a peaceful exchange. The airlock cycled open, revealing a corridor that gleamed with an unearthly iridescence. Taking a deep breath, Meera stepped across the threshold, the first human to set foot on an alien ship. What she found took her breath away. The Lumina were a striking race, tall and slender, their skin shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. Their eyes, large and angular, held an ancient wisdom that seemed to peer into Myra's very soul. Welcome, Lieutenant Patel, Lumarel said, bowing gracefully. Your presence here marks a historic moment for both our races. We have much to discuss. Mira returned the bow, her mind racing with possibilities even as she took in the wondrous sights around her. The Lumina ship was a marvel of technology, its organic curves and pulsing lights hinting at a science far beyond humanity's understanding. The meeting that followed was one for the history books, a delicate dance of diplomacy and cultural exchange. With each passing moment, Mira felt the weight of her actions, knowing that she was laying the foundation for humanity's place in a much larger universe. And as she learned more about the Lumina and their plight, the attack on their ship, the looming energy crisis on their homeworld, Mira knew that this was just the beginning. A grand adventure that would test her skills, her determination, and the very limits of human ingenuity. For now, though, there was the simple joy of connection, of two races meeting for the first time across the vast expanse of space. As Mira looked into the shining eyes of Lumarel, she saw the promise of a brighter future, a universe full of wonders waiting to be explored. The alarm blared through the ship, shattering the moment of peace. Mira spun around, pulse pistol drawn, as Lumina crew members raced to their stations. "What's happening?" Mira demanded, scanning the readouts on the ship's displays. "Are we under attack?" Lumarel's face was grave, the bioluminescent patterns on their skin flashing with distress. "The enemy has found us. The Umbral have come." Mira felt a chill race down her spine. The Umbral, the very name seemed to darken the air around them. An ancient enemy of the Lumina, a race of conquerors and enslavers. The Lumina ship shuddered as the first energy blasts struck its weakened shields. Mira gripped a console for balance, her mind racing. They were outmatched here, the Lumina vessel already damaged from the previous attack. "We need to get you out of here," Mira said, turning to Lumarel. "My ship is faster, better armed. We can draw their fire, give you a chance to escape." Lumarel shook their head, a look of grim determination on their angular features. "We cannot run, Lieutenant Patel. The Umbral will not stop until they have conquered or destroyed us. This is our fight." Mira set her jaw, understanding the weight of those words. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about taking a stand. About showing the galaxy that the Lumina, and now humanity, would not go quietly into the night. Turning to the comm, Mira hailed her ship. "Captain Novak, the Lumina are under attack. Requesting immediate reinforcements. We're going to fight." There was a moment of heavy silence before Novak's voice crackled back. "Understood, Lieutenant. Help is on the way. Show those Umbral what humanity is made of." Mira felt a fierce grin tug at her lips. Oh, she intended to. This was the moment she had trained for, the reason she had reached for the stars in the first place. As the Lumina crew scrambled to battle stations, Mira took her place beside Lumarel at the tactical console. The odds were against them, the Umbral ships closing in like birds of prey. But Mira had never been one to shy away from a challenge. "All right, Lumarel," she said, cracking her knuckles. "Let's show these Umbral what happens when they mess with the Lumina and their new human allies." The battle was joined, energy beams lancing through the void as the Lumina ship and Myra's vessel danced a deadly waltz with the Umbral attackers. It was a fight that would echo through the cosmos, a desperate stand against the forces of tyranny and oppression. And at the heart of it all was Mira Patel, a human who had dared to reach for the stars and found herself in the middle of a war that would change the course of galactic history. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with peril and sacrifice. But as Mira stood shoulder to shoulder with her new Lumina allies, facing down the darkness with unwavering resolve, she knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning of a great adventure, a tale that would be told for generations to come. The tale of the day humanity took its first step onto the galactic stage and said with one voice, "We will not go quietly. We will fight. And we will win." The Lumina. The battle raged on, the Lumina ship and Myra's vessel fighting tooth and nail against the Umbral onslaught. Myra's hands flew across the tactical console, her quick mind adapting to the alien technology as if she'd been born to it. Beside her, Lumarel directed their crew with a calm authority, even as the ship shuddered under the relentless barrage. The Lumina fought with a grace and precision that belied their peaceful nature, their advanced weaponry matching the Umbral blow for blow. But it wasn't enough. The Umbral ships were too many, their firepower too great. Slowly, inevitably, the Lumina defenses began to crumble. "We can't hold them off much longer," Mira said through gritted teeth, wincing as another explosion rocked the ship. "We need a new plan." Lumarel nodded, their bioluminescent patterns pulsing with grim determination. "There is one place we could go. One chance to turn the tide. But it's a risk, a gamble on an ancient legend." Mira met their gaze, understanding the unspoken weight of those words. A legend, a glimmer of hope in the darkness. It was a slim chance, but it was all they had. "Tell me," she said simply. And so, as the battle raged around them, Lumarel told Mira of the solar spear, a weapon of immense power hidden away on the Lumina's sacred moon. A relic from an age long past, a time when the Lumina had stood alone against the Umbral and emerged victorious. "If the legends are true," Lumarel said, "the solar spear could turn the tide of this war. But the journey to retrieve it is perilous, and the moon is heavily guarded by ancient defenses. It would take a small, skilled team to have any chance of success." Mira didn't hesitate. "I'll go. My crew and I will get that spear, or die trying." Lumarel clasped her hand, their touch warm and electric. "The Lumina owe you a debt we can never repay, Lieutenant Patel. Your courage and selflessness will be remembered for generations." There was no time for lengthy farewells. As the Lumina ship laid down covering fire, Mira and her team boarded a small, swift shuttle and blasted off towards the moon, leaving the raging battle behind them. The moon loomed before them, a shimmering orb of amethyst and gold. As they approached, Mira saw towering structures dotting its surface, ancient temples and fortresses that gleamed with an eerie, pulsing light. "Those are the defenses," Mira said, her eyes narrowing. "We'll have to move fast, hit them hard before they know we're there." Her team nodded, grim determination etched on their faces. They knew the stakes, the slim chance of survival. But they were Space Force, the best of the best. They would not fail. As the shuttle touched down in a swirl of amethyst dust, Mira led her team out into the alien landscape, pulse rifle at the ready. The air was thin, the gravity lighter than Earth's, but they adapted quickly, moving with practiced efficiency. The first defenses hit them like a hammer blow, energy beams searing the air around them. But Mira and her team were ready, dodging and weaving, returning fire with a precision born of countless hours of training. They fought their way into the heart of the ancient fortress, past crumbling walls and shimmering force fields. Each step was a battle, each moment a test of their skills and resolve. But at last, they stood before the solar spear, a shining lance of pure energy that pulsed with an inner fire. Mira reached out, her hand closing around the haft, feeling the power thrumming within. And then all hell broke loose. Umbral warriors poured into the chamber, their black armor drinking in the light. At their head strode Xerix, champion of the Umbral, his eyes glowing with a cruel, predatory intelligence. "So," he rumbled, his voice like distant thunder. "The humans have come to play at being heroes. How amusing." Mira stood tall, the solar spear blazing in her grip. "We're here to end this war, Xerix. To stop your conquest and tyranny." Xerix laughed, a sound that chilled the blood. "Foolish child. You have no idea of the forces you meddle with. The Umbral are the future, the rightful rulers of the galaxy. And you, little human, will be the first to fall." And with a roar, he charged, his dark blade slicing the air. Mira met him head-on, the solar spear clashing against his sword in an explosion of light and shadow. Around them, the battle raged, human and Umbral locked in mortal combat. Myra's team fought with the fury of the desperate, but they were outnumbered, outmatched. One by one, they fell, until only Mira remained, bleeding and battered, but unbroken. Xerxes loomed over her, his blade poised for the killing blow. Kneel, human. Kneel before the might of the umbral. But Mira Patel, daughter of Earth, would not kneel. With a cry of defiance, she surged to her feet, the solar spear blazing like a star in her hands. The battle that followed would be legend, spoken of in awed whispers for generations to come. Mira and Xerxes, locked in an epic duel, the fate of the galaxy hanging in the balance. Though wounded and weary, Mira fought with a skill and ferocity that astounded the watching umbral. The solar spear was an extension of her will, a blazing beacon of hope against the darkness. But Xerxes was a formidable foe, his dark blade a whirlwind of destruction. Blow by blow, he pressed his advantage, driving Mira back, the spear's light beginning to flicker and dim. In that moment, as all seemed lost, Mira Patel dug deep, drawing on reserves of strength she never knew she had. She thought of Earth, of the Lumina, of all the innocent lives hanging in the balance. And with a final, desperate cry, she lunged forward, the solar spear piercing Xerxes' black heart. The umbral champion fell, his dark blade clattering to the floor, the light fading from his cruel eyes. Silence fell, broken only by Myra's ragged breathing. She stood tall among the fallen, the solar spear shining like a beacon in her hands. A beacon of hope. Of victory against impossible odds. The legend of Mira Patel and the solar spear would spread like wildfire, igniting the spirits of all those who fought against the umbral's tyranny. But for now, as Mira staggered back to her ship, clutching her hard-won prize, she knew only one thing. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. The umbral would return, their thirst for conquest unquenched. And Mira would be there to meet them, the solar spear in her hands and the courage of humanity in her heart. For she was Lieutenant Mira Patel, the woman who had faced the darkness and emerged unbroken. The herald of a new age, a time when humans and Lumina would stand together against the night. The adventure was only beginning, and Mira was ready to meet it head-on, come what may, the umbral invasion. The return to Lumos Prime was a bittersweet homecoming. Mira and her battered team were hailed as heroes, the solar spear a shining symbol of hope in their hands. But the cost had been high, and the scars of battle ran deep. Lumarel greeted them with a solemn respect, their bioluminescent patterns glowing with a mix of grief and gratitude. "Your sacrifices will never be forgotten," they said, clasping Myra's hand. "The Lumina owe you a debt we can never repay." Mira shook her head, the weight of the fallen heavy on her shoulders. "We did what had to be done. But the fight isn't over. The umbral will be back, and we need to be ready." Even as she spoke, the first alarms began to sound. The umbral fleet, vast and terrible, was emerging from the depths of space, their ships blotting out the stars like a tide of endless night. Mira stared up at the descending horde, a chill running down her spine. The umbral had come in force, a display of might designed to crush all resistance. Against such overwhelming power, what chance did they have? But as she looked around at the faces of her crew, at the determined set of Lumarel's shoulders, Mira felt a flicker of hope. They had the solar spear, and more importantly, they had each other. Humans and Lumina, standing together against the darkness. "All right everyone," Mira said, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "This is it. The moment we've all been training for. The umbral think they can come here and take whatever they want. Let's show them just how wrong they are." A cheer went up from the assembled crews, a defiant roar that echoed across the gleaming spires of Lumos Prime. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they were not outmatched. Not in courage, not in spirit. As the umbral ships descended like birds of prey, Mira and Lumarel took their places at the forefront of the defense. The solar spear shone in Myra's hands, a beacon of light against the encroaching shadows. The battle was joined, a clash of titans above the shimmering cities of the Lumina. Mira fought like a woman possessed, the solar spear a whirling blur of light in her hands. She was everywhere at once, shoring up defenses, rallying the flagging, striking fear into the hearts of the umbral. But even Mira Patel, hero of the Lumina, could not be everywhere. Slowly, inexorably, the umbral gained ground. Their weapons were terrible to behold, dark energies that consumed all they touched. One by one, the defenders fell, until only a ragged few remained, backed into a corner, fighting with the desperation of the doomed. In that darkest hour, as all hope seemed lost, Mira made a decision. A last, desperate gamble. "Lumarel," she said, her voice heavy with fatigue and grief. "Gather your people and go. Take the shuttles, flee to the outer reaches. I'll hold them off." Lumarel stared at her, their eyes wide with shock. "Mira, no. We can't leave you. We fight together." Mira shook her head, a sad smile on her lips. "Not this time, my friend. Someone has to buy you time to escape. And I've got a score to settle with the umbral." Before Lumarel could argue, Mira was gone, charging towards the umbral lines with a cry of defiance on her lips. The solar spear blazed in her hands, a star of pure fury, as she cut through the enemy ranks like a scythe through wheat. The umbral fell before her, their dark armor shattering under the spear's relentless light. But for every one that fell, 10 more took their place, an endless tide of shadow and hate. Mira fought on, even as her strength waned, even as the wounds multiplied on her body. She fought for the Lumina, for her fallen comrades, for the shining promise of a galaxy free from the umbral's tyranny. In the end, it was Xerix who confronted her, his eyes burning with a cold, malevolent fire. "You again," he sneered, his dark blade drawn. "You should have fled with the others, human. Now you will die here, alone and forgotten." Mira spat blood, her grip tightening on the solar spear. "Not alone," she said, her voice a ragged whisper. "And not forgotten. As long as one person stands against you, Xerix, you'll never have victory." Xerix laughed, a sound like the tolling of a death knell. "Brave words, little one. Let's see how long you can keep standing." And with a roar, he charged, his blade a whirlwind of dark energy. Mira met him head-on, the solar spear a shining counterpoint to his darkness. They clashed in the heart of the battle, two titans locked in mortal combat. Mira fought with a skill and ferocity that belied her battered state, the solar spear a blur of light in her hands. But Xerix was a foe beyond any she had faced before, his strength fueled by a malevolent power that seemed to have no end. Blow by blow, he pressed his advantage, until Mira stood with her back to the wall, the solar spear flickering in her grasp. "Kneel," Xerix commanded, his voice a triumphant growl. "Kneel before the might of the umbral, and I may yet spare your life." Mira looked up at him, her eyes blazing with a fire that no shadow could touch. "I am Mira Patel," she said, her voice ringing out across the battlefield. "Daughter of Earth, champion of the Lumina. And I will not kneel." With a final, defiant cry, she surged forward, the solar spear blazing like a star gone nova. Xerix's eyes widened in shock as the spear pierced his dark heart, the light consuming him from within. The umbral champion fell, his body crumbling to ash on the wind. And Mira Patel, bloodied but unbowed, stood tall among the ruins of Lumo's prime. The battle was over. The umbral, leaderless and demoralized, fled back to the stars, their conquest thwarted. The Lumina, those who had survived, emerged from their hiding places, their faces alight with wonder and gratitude. "Mira," Lumarel breathed, rushing forward to catch the young warrior as she collapsed, the solar spear falling from her nerveless fingers. "You saved us. You saved us all." Mira managed a weak smile, her vision blurring at the edges. "Wasn't just me," she whispered. "It was all of us. Humans and Lumina, together. That's how we'll win this war, Lumarel. Together." And as the light of Lumo's prime star washed over them, as the cheers of the Lumina rose to the heavens, Mira Patel closed her eyes and let the darkness take her, content in the knowledge that, for now at least, the galaxy was safe. But the war was far from over. The Umbral would return, their thirst for conquest unslaked. And Mira would be there to meet them, the solar spear in her hands and the courage of humanity in her heart. For she was a champion, a defender, a light in the darkness. And as long as that light burned, hope would never die, darkest hour. In the aftermath of the battle, Mira Patel drifted in and out of consciousness, her mind a fevered jumble of memories and dreams. Images of the fight, of Xerxes' sneering face, of the solar spear's brilliant light, all swirled together in a kaleidoscope of pain and triumph. When she finally awoke, it was to find herself in a softly lit room, the air filled with the gentle hum of Lumina technology. Lumarel was there, their face etched with concern and relief. "Welcome back, hero," they said softly, their hand resting on Myra's. "You had us worried." Mira managed a weak smile, wincing as she tried to sit up. Her body felt like one giant bruise, every muscle screaming in protest. "How long was I out?" 3 days, Lumarel replied. "Your wounds were severe, even for a human. But our healers worked tirelessly. You're going to be all right." Mira nodded, her thoughts already racing ahead. The Umbral? The solar spear? Lumarel's expression grew somber. "The Umbral have withdrawn for now, but our scouts report they're massing for another attack. And the solar spear, it was damaged in your fight with Xerxes. Our artificers are working to repair it, but..." They trailed off, and Mira felt a chill run down her spine. The solar spear was their ace in the hole, their one hope against the Umbral's overwhelming might. If it was broken. "I need to see it," she said, swinging her legs off the bed, ignoring the wave of dizziness that washed over her. "And I need to speak to Captain Novak. We have to prepare for the next assault." Lumarel looked like they wanted to argue, but something in Myra's face must have convinced them of the futility of that. With a sigh, they helped Mira to her feet, supporting her as they made their way to the assembly hall. The sight that greeted Mira there was one of controlled chaos. Lumina scientists and engineers hurried back and forth, their faces drawn with fatigue and worry. In the center of the hall, on a raised dais, lay the solar spear. Myra's heart sank as she saw the extent of the damage. The once brilliant lance was dull and lifeless, its surface cracked and pitted. The intricate circuitry that ran along its length was dark, some of it melted into unrecognizable slag. "Can it be fixed?" she asked, her voice sounding small and lost in the cavernous space. The lead artificer, a tall Lumina with a grave expression, shook his head. "The damage is extensive. The spear drew upon your own life force in the battle, Mira Patel. It kept you alive, but at a great cost to itself. I fear it may be beyond our ability to repair." Mira closed her eyes, despair washing over her. Without the solar spear, what chance did they have against the Umbral? What had it all been for, if it ended like this? "Lieutenant Patel." Captain Novak's voice, usually so stern and unyielding, was soft with sympathy. "Mira. You've done more than anyone could have asked. You've given the Lumina, given all of us, a fighting chance. But this is a war we may not be able to win." Mira shook her head, a spark of defiance kindling in her chest. "No. I refuse to accept that. We've come too far, lost too much, to give up now. There has to be a way." She turned to the artificer, her eyes blazing. "The spear drew on my life force, you said. What if I gave it more? What if I poured everything I had into it?" The artificer blinked, taken aback. It might work," they said slowly. "But Mira, the risk to you would be immense. You barely survived the last time. If you were to fully bond with the spear, it could consume you utterly." "A chance," Mira said softly, "is all I'm asking for." She looked around at the faces of the Lumina, at Lumarel and Captain Novak. I'm willing to take that risk, if it means saving all of you. But I can't do it alone. Lumarel stepped forward, their hand clasping Myra's. You won't be alone. The Lumina stand with you, Mira Patel. To the end. Captain Novak nodded, his face grim but determined. And so does the Earth Space Force. We're in this together, Lieutenant. To whatever end. Mira felt tears prick at her eyes, a wave of emotion threatening to overwhelm her. But she blinked them back, squaring her shoulders. There would be time for tears later, if they survived. For now, there was work to do. All right then, she said, turning to the artificer. Let's get started. We have a war to win. For the next several hours, Mira worked with the Lumina scientists, poring over schematics and equations, trying to find a way to repair the solar spear. It was exhausting work, taxing both her mind and her still healing body. But Mira refused to rest, driven by a desperate, unyielding determination. Finally, as the artificial night of the Lumina city fell, they had a plan. It was risky, uncertain, and relied on technology the Lumina had never tested before. But it was a chance. Mira stood before the solar spear, her heart pounding in her chest. She reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool metal. At her touch, the spear seemed to come alive, a faint glimmer of light pulsing along its length. I'm ready, Mira said, her voice steady despite the fear that coiled in her gut. Let's do this. The artificer nodded, their hands flying over the control panel. Initiating bonding sequence. Mira, you must open your mind to the spear. Let it in, let it become a part of you. Mira closed her eyes, reaching out with her thoughts. She felt the spear's presence, a vast, alien consciousness that seemed to regard her with curiosity. Tentatively, she opened herself to it, letting down the barriers of her mind. The spear rushed in like a flood, a torrent of energy and information that threatened to overwhelm her. Mira gritted her teeth, fighting to maintain her sense of self in the maelstrom. She could feel the spear's power, its ancient wisdom, but also its pain, the damage it had sustained in the battle with Xerax. I'm here, Mira whispered, both aloud and in her mind. I'm with you. Let me help, let me heal you. Slowly, painfully, the spear began to mend, its cracks sealing, its circuitry sparking back to life. Mira poured everything she had into it, her strength, her will, her very essence. She could feel herself fading, her life force draining away, but she held on, unwilling to let go. And then, with a final, blinding flash of light, it was done. The solar spear was whole once more, blazing with an inner fire that seemed to light up the entire assembly hall. And Mira Patel, the hero of the Lumina, stood tall and proud, the spear clasped in her hands. But even as the cheers of the Lumina rang out, as Captain Novak clapped her on the shoulder with a gruff, "Well done, Lieutenant," Mira knew that this was only the beginning. For out in the darkness of space, the Umbral were gathering, their forces massing for a final, all-out assault. The decisive battle was still to come, and Mira would be at its forefront, the solar spear blazing in her hands, the fate of worlds resting on her shoulders. But she was ready. Ready to fight, ready to defend, ready to light the way for all those who stood with her against the darkness. For she was Mira Patel, champion of the Lumina, daughter of Earth. And as long as she drew breath, hope would never die. The stage was set. The pieces were in motion. The final act of this grand, cosmic drama was about to begin. And Mira wouldn't have missed it for the world. Humanity's stand. The Umbral came with the fury of 1,000 suns, their ships blackening the sky over Lumos Prime. It was an armada the likes of which the galaxy had never seen, a seemingly endless tide of darkness and destruction. At the forefront of the Lumina defense stood Mira Patel, the solar spear shining like a beacon in her hands. Her face was grim, her eyes hard with determination. She had known this moment would come, had prepared for it with every fiber of her being. But to actually face it, to stare into the maw of annihilation itself, it was a feeling beyond words. "Hold the line," she said into her calm, her voice ringing out to every human and Lumina fighter. "This is where we make our stand. This is where we show the Umbral what we're made of." A chorus of affirmations came back, a cacophony of voices united in defiance. They were scared, all of them. Mira could hear it in their words, see it in the trembling of their hands. But they were also resolute, determined. They would fight and keep fighting, until the very end. The first wave of Umbral fighters came screaming in, their weapons spitting bolts of dark energy. Mira raised the solar spear, feeling its power surge through her, and let loose a blast of pure, searing light. The Umbral ships scattered like leaves before a gale, some of them bursting into flame, others spinning off into the void. But there were always more, an endless stream pouring from the massive dreadnoughts that loomed in the distance. Mira and her fellow defenders fought with everything they had, their weapons and shields pushed to the limit and beyond. They took losses, grievous ones, each death a blow to Myra's heart. But still they held, buying time with blood and courage. In the heart of the battle, Mira found herself face to face with Xerix once more, the Umbral champion's eyes burning with a cold, malevolent fire. "You should have stayed down, human," he snarled, his dark blade slashing through the air. "You should have accepted your fate." Mira met his gaze, unflinching. "My fate is my own to choose," she said, the solar spear blazing in her hands. "And I choose to stand, to fight. For the Lumina, for humanity, for all those you would enslave and destroy." Their duel was a thing of legend, a clash of wills and weapons that seemed to shake the very foundations of the universe. Xerix was strong, incredibly so, his every blow carrying the force of a collapsing star. But Mira was fast, agile, the solar spear an extension of her being. She danced around Xerix's attacks, striking back with precision and power. But even Mira Patel had her limits. As the battle wore on, as the hours turned to days, she could feel her strength waning, her reactions slowing. Xerix pressed his advantage, his blade finding its mark again and again, leaving searing wounds across Myra's body. In a final, desperate gambit, Mira lunged forward, the solar spear aimed at Xerix's heart. But the Umbral champion was ready, his blade slicing up to meet hers. The two weapons clashed, energy crackling around them, and then, with a sound like the shattering of worlds, the solar spear broke. Mira stared in disbelief at the shattered remains of the weapon, her heart sinking. Without the spear, what chance did they have? What had it all been for? Xerix laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You see, human. You never had a chance. The Umbral are the future, the rightful rulers of the galaxy. And you? You're nothing. A speck of dust, to be wiped away." He raised his blade for the final blow, and Mira closed her eyes, waiting for the end. But the end did not come. Instead, there was a roar, a sound of fury and defiance that seemed to shake the very air. Myra's eyes snapped open, and she saw, to her amazement, the ships of the Earth Space Force, dropping out of warp right in the heart of the battle. At their head was the ESS Indomitable, a dreadnought of unparalleled might. And standing on its bridge, his face hard with determination, was Captain Novak. "Sorry we're late to the party," he said over the comm, his voice a welcome thunder in Myra's ears. "Had to pick up a few friends along the way." And then, to Myra's disbelieving eyes, more ships began to appear, dropping out of warp in a cascade of light. Luminous ships, their crystalline hulls gleaming. Arcarian ships, their angular silhouettes bristling with weapons. Zephyr ships, sleek and swift. Dozens of races, hundreds of vessels, all united under one banner. The banner of the Coalition. The banner of resistance against the Umbral. Mira felt a laugh bubble up in her throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. They had come. In humanity's darkest hour, when all hope seemed lost, the races of the galaxy had come. The battle that followed was one for the ages, a clash of titans on a scale unseen in the history of the cosmos. The coalition fleet struck the umbral like a hammer, their combined might tearing through the enemy ranks. At the forefront of it all was Mira, the shattered remains of the solar spear still clasped in her hands. She fought with a ferocity that astounded friend and foe alike, her broken weapon still a thing of terror in her grasp. And at her side, always, were her comrades. Lumarel, their bioluminescent patterns shining with a fierce, determined light. Captain Novak, his face grim but proud. The warriors of a dozen races, united in common cause. In the end, it was Mira who struck the final blow. Xerxes, battered and bleeding, lunged at her with a cry of hatred and despair. Mira met him head-on, the jagged edge of the solar spear plunging into his dark heart. The umbral champion fell, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered, black blood bubbling from his lips. You're just a human." Mira stood over him, her face hard, her eyes shining with a light that no darkness could touch. "No," she said, her voice ringing out across the battlefield. "I am Mira Patel. I am a warrior, a defender, a light in the darkness. And I am not alone." And with those words, the battle was won. The umbral, their leader fallen, their fleet in ruins, fled into the void, their dreams of conquest shattered. In the aftermath, amidst the cheers of victory and the tears of loss, Mira stood tall, the broken solar spear still clasped in her hands. She was wounded, weary, her body pushed to the very brink of endurance. But she was alive. And more than that, she was a symbol, a beacon of hope for all those who had fought and bled and sacrificed. For in the end, it had not been the solar spear that had saved them. It had not been any one weapon, any one hero. It had been them. All of them, human and Lumina and Arcarian and Zephyr, standing together against the darkness. United in hope, in courage, in the unbreakable spirit of all those who refused to bow to tyranny. And as long as that spirit lived, as long as there were those willing to stand and fight, the light would never go out. Mira looked out over the celebrating crowds, at the faces of her friends and comrades, and felt a sense of peace wash over her. They had won. Against all odds, against all expectation, they had won. And whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever dangers the future might hold, they would face them the same way. Together. Always together. For that was the true strength of the coalition, the true power that had brought the umbral to their knees. Not weapons, not ships, not even heroes like Mira Patel. But unity. Friendship. The unbreakable bonds of those who stand side by side in the face of the abyss. And as long as those bonds held true, there was nothing they could not face. Nothing they could not overcome. Nothing they could not win. The adventure was over. But the legend. The legend was just beginning. Mira stared in disbelief at the shattered remains of the weapon, her heart sinking. Without the spear, what chance did they have? What had it all been for? Xerxes laughed, a cold, cruel sound. "You see, human. You never had a chance. The umbral are the future, the rightful rulers of the galaxy. And you? You're nothing. A speck of dust, to be wiped away." He raised his blade for the final blow, and Mira closed her eyes, waiting for the end. But the end did not come. Instead, there was a roar, a sound of fury and defiance that seemed to shake the very air. Myra's eyes snapped open, and she saw, to her amazement, the ships of the Earth Space Force, dropping out of warp right in the heart of the battle. At their head was the ESS Indomitable, a dreadnought of unparalleled might. And standing on its bridge, his face hard with determination, was Captain Novak. "Sorry we're late to the party," he said over the comm, his voice a welcome thunder in Myra's ears. "Had to pick up a few friends along the way." And then, to Myra's disbelieving eyes, more ships began to appear, dropping out of warp in a cascade of light. Lumina ships, their crystalline hulls gleaming. Arcarian ships, their angular silhouettes bristling with weapons. Zephyr ships, sleek and swift. Dozens of races, hundreds of vessels, all united under one banner. The banner of the coalition. The banner of resistance against the umbral. Mira felt a laugh bubble up in her throat, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. They had come. In humanity's darkest hour, when all hope seemed lost, the races of the galaxy had come. The battle that followed was one for the ages, a clash of titans on a scale unseen in the history of the cosmos. The coalition fleet struck the umbral like a hammer, their combined might tearing through the enemy ranks. At the forefront of it all was Mira, the shattered remains of the solar spear still clasped in her hands. She fought with a ferocity that astounded friend and foe alike, her broken weapon still a thing of terror in her grasp. And at her side, always, were her comrades. Lumarel, their bioluminescent patterns shining with a fierce, determined light. Captain Novak, his face grim but proud. The warriors of a dozen races, united in common cause. In the end, it was Mira who struck the final blow. Xerx, battered and bleeding, lunged at her with a cry of hatred and despair. Mira met him head-on, the jagged edge of the solar spear plunging into his dark heart. The umbral champion fell, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered, black blood bubbling from his lips. You're just a human." Mira stood over him, her face hard, her eyes shining with a light that no darkness could touch. "No," she said, her voice ringing out across the battlefield. "I am Mira Patel. I am a warrior, a defender, a light in the darkness. And I am not alone." And with those words, the battle was won. The umbral, their leader fallen, their fleet in ruins, fled into the void, their dreams of conquest shattered. In the aftermath, amidst the cheers of victory and the tears of loss, Mira stood tall, the broken solar spear still clasped in her hands. She was wounded, weary, her body pushed to the very brink of endurance. But she was alive. And more than that, she was a symbol, a beacon of hope for all those who had fought and bled and sacrificed. For in the end, it had not been the solar spear that had saved them. It had not been any one weapon, any one hero. It had been them. All of them, human and Lumina and Arcarian and Zephyr, standing together against the darkness. United in hope, in courage, in the unbreakable spirit of all those who refused to bow to tyranny. And as long as that spirit lived, as long as there were those willing to stand and fight, the light would never go out. Mira looked out over the celebrating crowds, at the faces of her friends and comrades, and felt a sense of peace wash over her. They had won. Against all odds, against all expectation, they had won. And whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever dangers the future might hold, they would face them the same way. Together. Always together. For that was the true strength of the coalition, the true power that had brought the umbral to their knees. Not weapons, not ships, not even heroes like Mira Patel. But unity. Friendship. The unbreakable bonds of those who stand side by side in the face of the abyss. And as long as those bonds held true, there was nothing they could not face. Nothing they could not overcome. Nothing they could not win. The adventure was over. But the legend was just beginning.